Hey guys, Dr. Decks here. Thank you for coming to our channel. We really appreciate it. Today, I'm gonna review this router that DeWalt sent us. This is a DCW620 Plunge router. This is a really powerful router. There's a lot of packed features in this thing, multiple speed. I'm sure there's a light. I haven't even turned it on yet. Let's pull the trigger real quick. I don't have anything lit. Yep, there's the light. So there's an LED. You can do multiple heights adjustments with it. There's anti-rotation in it too. Looks like there's also technology for tracking this router. You can link it up to an app, I believe. But mostly what I'm gonna use it for is to clear away materials in different scenarios. So today we're gonna actually be showing you, we're gonna make a jig and we're going to show you how we're gonna do a new form of our folded corners by using a 45-degree router bit. I bought this on Amazon. It's a 1/2-inch shank. So I have a collar, 1/2-inch collar that we're gonna install on the router. It comes with a 1/2 inch and a 1/4 inch. So depending on what size router bits you have. And a 22mm wrench that comes in the kit. This also has the ability to hook up to a vacuum right here if you want, but I don't ever do that because I'm outside all the time. It has a trigger lock, which is kind of cool. And it also has the locking ability to keep it on. So you can put the router in an on position and leave it on if you want, if you're doing lots of different types of cutting or routing or round over, or maybe you have it inverted in a table or whatever. There's a depth setting adjustment right here. And then there's 3 spaces on the router that allow you to go to different depths depending on what you're doing. Now that comes in handy, like if you're using different thicknesses of materials, like I will be for doing these folded corners. So I might be able to adjust one at one height, and you lock this pin in. So when you push down, it only goes down to a certain height on that particular pin. And then let's say I need to go a little bit deeper. I can turn it to this pin here, and that's maybe a 1/4 inch lower. I can do it again and go even another 1/4 inch lower, so that could be a total of a 1/2 inch lower than your original. These are all adjustable in height. This is adjustable as well for spinning. It's spring loaded, so it won't move around when you push down. It has a locking mechanism right here, so you can pull up and down on this and lock it in place. So once you have your depth set, there's several safeguards so that you don't change that out. But again, what I'm gonna use it for isn't really a whole lot of that. I like the power of this router though. It's gonna be able to get me through all kinds of different types of materials. I'm going through PVC, which is actually a lighter material. But like I said before, I'm gonna make a jig so that I can take this router and I'm gonna put this together like so, and I'm gonna have a piece of decking under here, and then I'm gonna take this router and I'm going to set it up like so, so that I can put a V-notch into this deck board that's sitting down here. And I'll just roll across like that, and then that'll be my V-notch, and then I'll pull that piece out, and then we can heat it up and fold it into a folded corner. Once the jig is set, this is gonna be a much faster way for us to do this versus my previous way, which I'm either doing it on a table saw or a chop saw. So I'm usually doing it on the chop saw, and it's several steps and it's multiple depths and it's not accurate. Once I have this figured out, it's dialed in, I could even save this jig if I want and use it in the future, or I may end up making a nicer jig, but for today, this is what we have. The first thing I notice is that these 2 pieces right here are a little too tall for my jig. So my decking is only 1 inch thick, and these are 1.5 inches. So I'm gonna rip these down closer to 1 inch so that when I put this down together, everything's at the same elevation, so that when I get ready to cut this V-notch in my board, that everything's at the correct height. So first thing I'm gonna do is take these, go rip them down to 1 inch, and then I'll come back and we'll assemble the jig and we'll get cracking. All right, guys. So today I'm using TimberTech AZEK. You know it's one of my favorite products to use, and lately I've been purchasing it through a company called Lumber Plus. Not only does Lumber Plus have really authentic thermal wood products, hardwoods, and cladding and softening materials, but they are also a distributor for TimberTech AZEK. So consider using Lumber Plus for your next deck project. All right, guys, we had to do a little bit of a rewind here. You can see all the sawdust and the V grooves in the boards, and they're thinner now, and the problem we had, we just spent 30 minutes shooting this video and we got done to the final sequence, but this router bit is not big enough to create the proper V-notch in this board. See how things rise up? So I maximized the width of this board. I still need to go deeper. We have these two areas. This board will not fold properly until I get the right size router bit. So we had a slight fail, but no worries, okay? We're gonna do the exact same thing with a thinner board, okay? Because we have to do this for our fascia. We have to do this for our fascia boards anyways. So this is a stair riser. It's a 1/4 inch thinner, and I'll be able to get the right cut, and we can still do a waterfall edge on this thickness of material. They make a thinner material than this, but I don't like using it because you can't Cortex it. This board you can Cortex, this board you can Cortex, okay? Sorry for the lengthy description, explanation, all that good stuff, but we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna kind of start over from a point where we were in the video. So here's the board, here's the thickness. I need to find center of this board. There's the center, which actually isn't gonna really help us a whole lot now. Well, I guess it can. We can still find the center of these V-notches, right? Because they're already done. So I can set one of these edge boards in place now, which I'll do right now. Again, this is a quick and dirty template. You can spend a lot of time making a really nice one if you want. I only need to make a couple of these for now. So, okay, so now I've set the board up so it goes right down the center of my groove. And then I'm gonna bring this guy over and do the same thing. I'm gonna set him up right in the center of the groove. And then I'm gonna go ahead and pin him down. There we go. So there's our setup, and it comes out, it slides. Okay, good. That's what we want. We want it to be able to move around a little bit so we can get it out a little bit easier. We can still put a clamp on this, no problem. But once we have that figured out, then we got to put in our side rails, right? And this is what the router is going to run against when we try to cut this line. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pop this, I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to go ahead and use the flat side of this router as a guide for one of our rails. Okay, so I want to center this bit, which is right there. We're right on our line, okay? And then I just want to kind of square this board up like so, and I'm gonna double check it. It's off a little, so I'm gonna turn it just a tidge. I'm gonna go ahead and put one screw in right here. I'm gonna square this up, and I'm gonna make sure that my router still lines up with my V-groove. It's off a little, so I'm gonna open this side up just a little bit. Okay, there we go. Now I'm gonna go ahead and lock this down. Now that that's done, we have our rail that we're gonna run, and I'm gonna check it on the high side and on the low side. Looks pretty good. Okay, so now looks square too. Okay, good. So now we'll put the router right there because we know that's where we want the plunge to go, and we'll go ahead and let's set up this side. So I'm gonna pull it to the top and kind of get that prepped. Put a mark on it in case something moves. Okay. Now we've got a nice setup over here. We'll get that locked in. The router's kind of in the way again, so I'm just gonna hold the part, put a line on it, make sure it doesn't move so I can get the screw in. Okay, that's done. That feels pretty good. Now I have to set the depth. We obviously had the depth set before we had to cut the video, and now we gotta change it because we're going to a different depth of material. So what I'm gonna do is loosen this up a little bit. I need to go deeper. I know I need to go deeper than this because this was not deep enough in our last attempt. So I'm thinking I kind of like where this is sitting right now. I'm gonna take it out just a little bit more just so I don't mess up. Okay, and let's go ahead and lock that down to the right depth. Now we're ready to cut this. Now I just want to check and make sure my piece is pretty stable in this jig so I can go ahead and run my router against this rail and get this cut. Here we go. All right. Now she's pretty snug, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull some screws, but I'd rather have a snug fit and be safe than have something loose and possibly get injured. So I'm gonna pull these 2 screws out. That's probably all I need to do, and I can just swing these out of the way. There we go. Okay, look at that. Look how clean that is. So trying to do this on a chop saw or a table saw is really difficult because of the depth settings that you're gonna need to get it perfect. I like the amount of material that I have in between here. I'm gonna go grab a heat gun and let's heat this up and get it folded so you guys can see what the end result is. Starting to get loose. Now, normally when I do this, I add a little bit of glue and activator or accelerator into the edge of this. But depending on how many screws you put in here, you may or may not need it. But it's just a really nice look. This miter is never gonna come apart. It's never gonna fall away. As it hardens, it's gonna stay like this and has a really nice look, regardless if you're gonna see the miter or not. That's a pretty tight miter, right? On the piece. So that's how I'm making waterfall mitered corners with a V-grooved router bit, which takes some of the guesswork out of what we're doing as far as making the cut. Obviously, there's a lot of sawdust in here because I didn't have it hooked up to dust collection or anything like that. But as far as how the router worked, it actually worked very well. I think the one thing probably in this video you may or may not pick up on is that this locking mechanism is really cool, but it just takes a minute to learn. But once you figure that out, it's like right now it's locked in place. So you just got to push in on this and pull back, and then you can set your depth. And then you just pull on this and then it's locked. So it's just something getting used to, because that's normally not how you set depth. There's other ways to do it. This is like an enhanced version of your depth gauge and depth lock for this particular router. The one thing I would say is because we use an XR 8 amp hour XR battery, there was plenty of power for this router. It's gonna do all your light duty stuff real easy, but it also has a lot of power, so it can get through some of those harder woods and not burn them too much because it's got plenty of power to get through it. One thing I did notice is if I pushed a little too fast, that the technology, it's gonna let you know, it's gonna give you a warning and say, hey man, I'm overloading, back off, or it'll shut off. It's a trigger mechanism, so it's only gonna activate or light up when it's in that situation that's saying, hey, you're going too hard, or you're taking too much material, or you're into a knot, or something like that, or you hit something foreign in your wood or something like that, then it could be a problem. But for the most part, it worked out great. I like this router. It's definitely going into our rotation, into our tools. And thanks for watching this video, guys. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to click subscribe. Have a great day.